spur of the minute vlog intro here. So Cassie's gonna be doing a 24-hour top tier Patreon readathon tonight into tomorrow, and I think that I'm going to participate even though I am working full-time, and we're gonna see how much I can read in 24 hours. Who knows? I do have a mentee tomorrow with me, so it's not like I can read as much as I normally would at work, but I feel like if I'm dedicated, I can get at least 2 books done. This is based off of her Snakes and Ladders TBR game, and you have to roll in order to get your prompts. She gave us both her 2022 board and her 2023 board, and I did my first roll. I'll show you guys it up here, and it landed on New. So I'm counting New as a book that I hauled in 2023, and I gave my Patreons 2 choices. The first was The Lost in the Moment and Found by Shauna McGuire. This is the latest in the Wayward Children series, and then I also gave them Alien Echo by Mira Grant, which is a sci-fi horror hybrid that I think leans young adult, but I've nobody talk about and really wanted to try it. Both of these are on my TBR, so I'm actually being pretty good by reading either one of these. But they chose The Lost in the Moment and Found, so this is what I will be starting with. I've enjoyed the Wayward Children series, but not absolutely loved them, so we'll see if this ends up being a new favorite in the series or not so much. It does have an audio though, so I'm gonna pop in my headphones and we're gonna get to reading. So it is about 3 hours into the readathon, and I have finished Lost in the Moment and Found. This is the 8th book in the Wayward Children series. It's about Antoinette, who loses her father, and her mother gets a new husband, and Antoinette decides that she does not want to stay at home, runs away, and ends up in her own perfect world. This is a harder hitting story from the Wayward Children's novels. It's probably not the darkest one that I've read, but it does have a very dark subject matter. I wanted to love this, and I did like the beginning and thought that it was very well done, but toward the middle we really just started to lull and it lost me a little bit. This one I'm gonna give it the characters an 8. I thought Antoinette was well done. I thought that the anger that I felt toward the mother and the stepfather was well done. So I did like that. I don't think that the setting was very strong. This one is set in a world, so I expected the world to be very developed, and it really wasn't. We spend a large part of the book in the shop, but the shop has other aspects to it, and she talks about the other aspects, and I'm trying to be very vague because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But I just wanted more of the shop, and we kind of get that, but it's in a diary entry, and that's something that I don't particularly like in books, when you just get dumped all the info in a diary that the main character found. It just feels kind of lazy. But at the same time, this book's 150 pages. We didn't have a lot of time to do it any other way, so I see why she did it that way. But again, that's why novellas don't always work for me, because I expect them to do more. And I need to, I guess, start tempering my expectations a little bit in that regard. The writing's getting a 9. It is extremely well written. It has Shauna McGuire's very beautiful lyrical writing that sucks you in and pulls at your heartstrings. The beginning of this was very emotional, so that was extremely well done. Can't complain about that at all. The plot, I'm giving a 6. I just felt like we had our general plot that was set up in the beginning, but I wanted that to come a little bit more full circle than I felt like it did, and I wanted there to be a little bit more to it than that, because I feel like you could have cut out the entire middle of the book and we would have still had the same story. So I needed a little bit more plot, I think, in my opinion. And then enjoyment, I think I'm gonna give it a 6, maybe a 7. I did not have a bad time with this story. I thought that it was well done. Like I said, I liked the beginning. I wasn't just bored out of my mind through the middle of this book, but I do have very meh feelings about it overall, and I feel like meh feelings deserve a kind of middle of the road enjoyment score, but not a middle of the road. Like, I enjoyed it more than just a straight 5 out of 10, but it was not and is not a new favorite book. So that gives us a 6.83, which is a 3-star. Feels pretty accurate. I'm okay with that. Glad I read it. Glad I'm staying up to date on the series. I enjoy reading them. I just don't love them, which is sad because I know so many people that love these, and they are good about giving you a hard-hitting emotional lesson. They're kind of, in my opinion, middle grade in that way, that it is following kids and it's trying to give the reader a lesson and a moral to the story, but it is geared, I feel like, toward adults. Like, I wouldn't give this to my 7-year-old to read, if that makes sense. So anyway, had a good time with that one, enjoyed it. So now we need to do our next roll and to see what we're gonna get. I rolled the dice, and I ended up with a 7. And if we click across the board, Cassidy said she did not care if we used the same board or if we used the different board. I started with a 2022 board, so let's see what it gives me if I do 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapter titles. So let me go look and see what books that I have. The 2022 board loves me, and I got chapter titles, which I thought was going to be rough. I figured that I would only be able to find chapter titles in a long epic fantasy, and I don't really want to do a long epic fantasy. I've got plenty of those on my TBR this month. This is for getting through my shorter, punchier reads that I normally avoid because I don't read shorter, punchier reads. But anyway, I found the perfect one. That's Sour Candy by Keelan Patrick Burke. If you watched my 72 Hours in the Haunted House vlog, you'll know that I read Blanky, which I gave 5 stars and loved by this author. And Cassidy said that this one is even weirder and darker than Blanky. And so I am so very excited. And if you look, it does have chapter titles. I cannot believe that this has chapter titles. Like, this is perfect. I'm so excited. So this is only 74 pages, so I should be able to finish it pretty quick. I don't really know what it's about. I know that it actually involves sour candy. It's not just like a metaphor for something, which I'm really curious to see what all that's about. So I'm gonna go read this. I'll come back and give you a synopsis and give you my final thoughts. I'm not gonna probably check in halfway because it's 74 pages, but I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so hopefully this clip is usable because it is just the perfect ambiance for reading tonight. Honestly, I wish I could stay up longer because it is thundering really loudly outside. I don't think we have any rain yet, but it's just mostly thunder. We are under a tornado watch, which is not spectacular, but also is good reading weather. So hopefully I don't get blown away. If I get blown away, you won't see this clip. And that's all I'm gonna say because I feel like I'm jinxing myself even by saying it. But anyway, I have now finished Sour Candy. We're about 4 hours into the readathon so far, and I liked this one. I didn't like it as much as Blanky. I felt like Blanky just gave me a little bit more of the creeps, whereas this one is more weird. Like, it's really, really weird, and it goes in a strange place, and this is not the novella for somebody that wants a lot of explanation to their horror. It's just weird, and you just have to be along for the ride. And I felt like I had a good time just being along for the ride. My face while I was reading it was a lot of like, huh? What? What are we doing right now? But I did have a really good time with it. For the characters, I think I'm going to give this one an 8. I thought that the characters were really well done. The little boy was super creepy, and I did appreciate that. You could tell that this guy was like completely devolving, which I thought was really well done. The setting, I think I'm going to give a 7. There really wasn't a whole lot in the way of setting other than it was creepy. And the little kid was creepy, and the devolution was creepy, and these little monster things, whatever they were creepy. So it was okay. There was more good than bad, but I wouldn't say that it's like a perfect setting because there wasn't a lot of effort that had to be put into it, being so short. The writing, I'm gonna give a 9. I really enjoy Keelan Patrick Burke's writing style. I think he does a very good job crafting short form stories. And then for the plot, I'm gonna give it a 7. Again, more good than bad, but it is really short, and there wasn't a lot in the way of just like, I guess there was a decent amount of plot, or there was a purpose to the story, but it was okay. Like, it was decent, but I felt like we could have gotten a little bit more from it, obviously. I mean, it's 75 pages long, so it was weird. I had a good time with it. It was a 7. And then for enjoyment, I think I'm gonna give it a 7. I enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. I'm super glad that I read it, but it's not like a new favorite horror. It didn't really hit all of my like horror creepy buzzwords. Anyway, that gives us a 7.5, which is a solid 3-star read. It's on the higher end of a 3-star read. Had a great time with it. Definitely will be reading more Keelan Patrick Burke in the future. Very much so enjoyed. So now I need to find my phone because we have got to get my next prompt. I probably won't be doing a whole lot of reading for this tonight, just simply because I do have to go to work tomorrow, so I need an audiobook that I can listen to on the way to and from work. It needs to be at least a 3-hour audio because I have a really long drive. So let's do our first roll and find out what we get. Okay, so we got a 6. Let's see what a 6 gets me. Okay, so we stopped on chapter titles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is odd on the 2022 board. So I guess I'm going to have to do odd. And I feel like we just got done with odd. So I don't know if I want another odd. How can we interpret odd? I feel like odd can be anything that is, how do we interpret odd? Okay, let me think about it and I'll be back. So we have to make this quick because the sprint ends in 48 seconds, but Cassidy said that odd could be really anything, odd cover, odd book, or odd page number. So I went and looked at one of the new thrillers that has been released that I was interested in, Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica, and it is 315 pages, which is an odd number. So I think I'm going to be listening to this one tomorrow. It is about a couple that seemed so nice you'd never imagined what was going on behind closed doors. It's a high-octane, edge-of-your-seat thriller. I have not heard that about this book. I've heard some meh, so-so things, but I have enjoyed a Mary Kubica before that got meh reviews, so I'm hopeful, and I haven't read a thriller in a while, so I feel like it's time for me to read a thriller. So I'll check back in with you guys in the morning once I've read some of this after I've listened to it on the way to work, but for now, probably going to sleep. Okay guys, so I am about 40% into Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. I decided to come out for lunch because I have a mentee with me today, and so it's making it really hard for me to read at work, which is not right because the experiment is how much can I read, and this is throwing my whole day off. But anyway, I am about 40% and I'm not loving it. I feel like the beginning was really intriguing, the prologue was very interesting, and then kind of the first couple of chapters, but then after that, it's just gotten really boring. A lot of the decisions that the nicest couple are making are not decisions that I would expect anyone to make, much less a married couple. They don't even really act like a married couple. Their relationship is really weird, and maybe that'll make sense later on, but for now, I'm just like, meh. It's written from the guy's point of view. I really don't like the husband, and I'm just bored. Like, the wife has no backbone, and I don't know. There's also a lot of like convenient things happening, something that's there purely to make sure that something that happens later can do it in a way that is really easy, and I'm just annoyed by that. Like, I want there to be a little bit more depth to it. I just don't see where it's going. I don't understand why we're having a lot of the moments that we're having, because like, you could cut out most of this and it would be the same story. So I'm curious to see what the twist is, because if it's not really good, I'm really not gonna like this book. So I'm gonna keep reading, maybe get a little bit more listened to during work today. Definitely try to finish it on the way home, and then I'll check back in with you guys later for final thoughts, but so far it's not looking great. Okay, everybody, so it's time to close out this vlog. I have actually finished the Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. I did not really love this one. It was super boring, and the twist just, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I wanted to love it. I've enjoyed a Mary Kubica before, but most of this was just extremely boring with some very convenient plot twists and plot devices and things that I just felt like nobody would ever actually do. And so it really took me out of the story because I was like, nobody would act that way. For example, like, you can't just Google and know all of these like forensic countermeasures. Anyway, so it did not overly work for me. The characters were super annoying and, like I said, unbelievable. Unfortunately, the characters are gonna get a 5 from me on this one. They're not all bad, but they're just pretty much 50-50. Like, there was 50% bad at 50% that was not so bad, and so I just felt like they were very cardboard. I felt, again, like none of their motivations made any sense to me. I didn't feel like the relationships really made a whole lot of sense between husband and wife. I know that it was supposed to be a red herring type thing, but it just didn't work. It wasn't the red herring that she wanted it to be. I think I'm gonna give the setting a 3. There is absolutely nothing about this that gives me thrilling vibes. So for me, the setting in a thriller is not like a world building that I would give for a fantasy setting. Is gonna be more like, in a horror, how creepy was it? How much did I feel the, horror vibes or the haunted house setting or something like that? In a thriller, especially a domestic thriller like this, it's gonna be more, how on the edge of my seat was I? And the answer is, for probably 80% of the book, not at all. The first, couple of chapters were really intriguing, and the last little bit sped up a little bit, but for the most part, the majority of this book, not thrilling in the slightest. For writing, I'm going to give it a 7. I don't think that it was poorly written. There was some dialogue and, like I said, character interactions that just did not feel very realistic, and I do lean that into the writing category when the dialogue and the interactions just aren't done very well. Otherwise, it was fine. It's just your very plain run-of-the-mill thriller. Was not poorly written, but wasn't just, you know, amazingly written either. The plot, I'm giving a 3. I thought the plot was a little bit ridiculous and, again, extra boring. The pacing was way too slow. There was so much unnecessary fluff in this book to try to get it to 315 pages, and the plot just, it didn't make sense. It required me to suspend way too much belief. Suspending belief in something how much I'm willing to suspend depends on the type of book that I'm reading. In a fantasy book, I might be willing to suspend a lot of belief because you're building this world, and again, that partially depends on how much world building you do. But in a horror, I'm willing to suspend a lot more belief than I am a domestic thriller. Like, this is human beings in human situations, in a human world. I still need to believe that these intentions, these motivations, these decisions are things that somebody would actually make, and I didn't buy that at all. And then enjoyment, I'm gonna give it a 4. I liked it a little bit less than average, but it was not the worst thing that I've ever read. Like, it was readable. I didn't want to DNF it, but I did not have a good time with this book. So unfortunately, it's going to be a 4.33, which is a 2-star read. I hate that, but I'm not overly surprised based off of how I was talking about it. So anyway, this one, not my favorite. If you are a very big domestic thriller fan and you love Mary Kubica, I still say give this one a try, but I've read 3 or 4 others of hers now, and this is by far my least favorite, like leaps and bounds lower than the others. And I think it's just, it was boring. So I don't know. If you love it, I hope you love it. Please read it, but it wasn't for me. So to wrap up this vlog, first I read Lost in the Moment and Found. This was for the new prompt on the 2022 board. And I think I used the 2022 board for all of these books, which is excellent. I liked this okay. I ended up giving it a 3-star. It was fine. It's not my favorite in the Wayward Children's world, but it was okay. Then I read Sour Candy, which I also gave a 3-star, had a good time with it. Loved Keelan Patrick Burke's writing, loved the weirdness of this. I did want the kid to be a little bit creepier. I felt like the kid could have been a lot more like spooky than he actually was. And I had a great time with it, but it was not as good to me as Blanky. And then last but not least, we read Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica. Again, you just heard me talk about this one. So these are the 3 books that I read for this vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I think it ended up being, but this one was 315 pages. This one was 150-ish pages, and this one is 75 pages. So that's about like 540-ish pages for the 24 hours, which I feel like is not too shabby. I will completely take that. So apparently I can read about 500 pages while also working a full-time job. Leave me a, is there a candy emoji? Leave me a candy emoji if you got this far, you don't have anything to say, but you just want to let me know that you were here. As always, links to my Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads are all in the description box down below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.